Discover the amazing moment. One billionaire asked a surprising question only one single mom responded. The gymnasium buzzed with attention that seemed to electrify the air, packed with well-groomed faces filled with ambition and drive. Jenna sat at the edge of her folding chair, her heart racing as she absorbed the conversation surrounding her. Here, beneath the fluorescent lights, she felt like a ghost, a single mother, often dismissed by the world, drowning among powerful voices discussing the price of success. As billionaire Henry Wade took the stage, Jenna steeled herself for the onslaught of his rhetoric, but inside, doubt began to creep in. Is success worth the cost? He asked, his tone laced with challenge. The room gasped at the provocative nature of his question, but Jenna felt the weight of it settle on her shoulders. Her two young children, snuggled safe in their beds, fought for attention in the back of her mind. The late nights spent studying nursing textbooks while her eyelids drooped, the endless hours working at the diner to keep everything afloat, it all felt like a farce against the successes of the men and women around her. Before she could stop herself, her hand shot up involuntarily. The world hushed in anticipation. Success comes at a huge cost, she finally managed, forcing the words through a throat tight with anxiety. But what if I told you that some of us are afraid to pursue it because we can't afford the failure? The impact of her unapologetic assertion rippled through the crowd. Disbelief mingled with admiration, and the deep-seated judgment etched into the faces of some townsfolk became palpable and suffocating. Her voice quivered, recounting the sleepless nights and the ashes of dreams brushed aside to provide stability for her kids. As she spoke, a battle brewed within her, a fierce conflict between her aspirations and the deep-rooted fear of being labeled just another statistic. What would they think of her, a single mom fumbling for success among the elite? Her heart ached with resentment at the prospect of being seen as anything less than a fighter. Before Jenna could finish her thought, the room erupted into applause. But it wasn't the cheers that overwhelmed her, it was the expression in Wade's eyes, a mix of something she couldn't place: recognition? Curiosity? Then it came, an invitation hanging in the air with a significant weight. Let us work together to uplift our community, he said, gesturing toward her. Suddenly, the focus shifted entirely to her. Could she really stand shoulder to shoulder with someone like him? The nightmarish thought of inadequacy surged through her. She longed for this chance, but fear gnawed at her insides like a wild beast. What if they found out she felt like an imposter? Questions swirled, each more crippling than the last. Did he really want her opinion? Was she worthy enough to join him? A sharp breath caught in her throat. As she stepped off the stage, the weight of expectations anchored her back. In her mind, they transformed into suffocating chains, reminders of the judgment waiting to greet her at every corner of her life. He was a titan of industry, she, a worker bee, scurrying to meet the demands of her two busy lives. But as Jenna walked into the chaos beyond the gymnasium walls, her heart pounded, not from fear but for potential. This moment could shift everything, if only she could silence the inner critic that loomed ever closer with each passing thought. Just when the thrill of new possibilities began to pierce through the fog of her despair, a harsh revelation pierced through her thoughts. What if the very support she so desperately needed was rooted in a past she couldn't overlook? Caught between her desire for recognition and the fierce love she had for her family, Jenna stood at a precipice, one that could change the narrative of her life forever. The question burned in her mind: would fear continue to keep her mired in uncertainty, or could she rise into her own light, even in a world that pushed back? As the weight of the moment pressed down on her, she understood only one thing for certain: she couldn't let her story end in the shadows. Jenna's footsteps echoed on the gymnasium floor as she stepped into the hallway, the fluorescent lights flickering above her in rhythmic pulses mirroring the chaos within. The applause still resonated in her ears, a haunting reminder of the unexpected attention she had garnered. Yet, beneath the surface of that momentary triumph lay a torrent of anxiety. Was she truly prepared for what lay ahead? In the weeks that followed, Jenna found herself hyper-aware of every interaction. The once familiar diner now felt foreign, an anchor pulling her back to a life she desperately wanted to transcend. Customers chatted animatedly, their conversations rich with dreams and aspirations, while she scribbled down orders and poured coffee. Each time she gazed out the window, the world beyond seemed full of possibilities that only deepened her restlessness. Driven by the urge to prove herself, she began rearranging her life. She embraced her nights as study time, meticulously poring over nursing textbooks under the dim light of her kitchen. Books piled up on the table, reminders of her ambition juxtaposed against the warm pictures of her children taped to the fridge. Could she balance the two? The question lingered, taunting her with its complexity. One evening, the diner was unusually quiet. A rare moment of solitude transformed the space around her, granting her time to reflect. Clutching a pen, she found herself doodling on the edge of a napkin notes for potential ideas she wanted to discuss with Wade. What if they could launch a program together, one focused on healthcare for low-income families? A flicker of excitement ignited within her, but it was quickly dampened by an avalanche of self-doubt. What if he dismissed her ideas outright? Or worse, laughed at her for thinking a single mother could have a viable vision within such a sprawling enterprise? As she stared at her sketch, an internal war raged. Her determination clashed violently against her insecurities. Soon, the day arrived when she was set to meet Wade at a local cafe. As Jenna dressed that morning, she meticulously chose each piece of clothing: a navy blue dress paired with a blazer that felt just a tad too sophisticated for her everyday life. It was a symbolic armor, meant to shield her from the weight of judgment. When she arrived, a jolt of adrenaline kicked in at the sight of him. Wade's presence commanded the room, yet as he turned toward her and smiled, surprisingly warm, a flicker of doubt melted. They exchanged pleasantries, and for a moment, Jenna felt almost normal. Yet, as he began asking about her life and ambitions, the euphoric rush faded, replaced by a gut-wrenching fear. Wade leaned forward, genuine interest shining in his eyes. "So, Jenna, tell me about your vision," he said, his voice a catalyst for both eagerness and paralyzing fear. What if her ideas shattered under scrutiny? Jenna's breath caught, and as she opened her mouth to respond, the weight of her parents' sacrifices, her children's future, and her recent interaction in the gym reverberated powerfully in her mind. This was her moment to rise, to confront her fears head-on. "Actually," she said, trying to ground herself in the moment, "I believe we can redefine success based on how we uplift others." The words tumbled out as swiftly as her heart raced, carrying her thoughts along with them. The look on Wade's face shifted, acknowledgement flickered there along with something deeper. Was it admiration, perhaps? In that unraveling moment, Jenna realized that the cost of pursuing success was dwarfed by the riches of her ambition. She found herself poised on the cusp of revelation. The next few minutes could either carve her path or send her spiraling back into doubt. "Let us explore this further," he encouraged, his voice warm and confident. But as she started to outline her ideas, a shadow slithered through her thoughts, simmering beneath her hope. What if the scrutiny was harsher than she anticipated? As she spoke, regrets from her past clawed at the edges of her newfound self-assurance, caught once again. Between the promise of her aspirations and the remnants of fear, Jenna understood one vital truth: the time had come to face the demons of her past, those hidden fears that had the power to unravel her. Could she confront the voice that whispered she'd never be enough? As she pushed forward, her future remained uncertain, but in the eye of the storm, her revelation simmered. Would she shatter her limits or let them confine her forever? The answer awaited just beyond the horizon of her own fears. As the conversation flowed, Jenna felt an unfamiliar warmth unfolding within her, a wellspring of confidence ignited by Wade's unearthed curiosity. His encouragement was a lifeline, and with every word she spoke, she began to believe in her own vision. The idea of redefining success no longer as a personal achievement but as a collective uplift felt transformative, but beneath her eloquence, a simmering fear lurked. Each time she shared an idea, echoes of her past whispered doubts. Was she merely a single mother pretending to play in the world of executives? She caught herself glancing down at her notebook, filled with her scrawled thoughts and sketches. Those were her dreams, but they felt insubstantial under Wade's astute gaze. "Let us get practical," he interjected, breaking her thoughts. How do you envision this program working? What outcomes are you hoping for? His question brought a rush of clarity. It was as if someone had flipped a switch in her mind. Instead of stammering, Jenna launched into her idea with newfound fervor, laying out potential frameworks and examples she'd seen work in other communities. Each point she made was laced with her personal experiences, anecdotes of families like hers who struggled yet fought for better health resources. She described models that integrated education and health outreach, intending to foster a sustainable community. As she spoke, she noticed Wade's demeanor shift. His attention was laser-focused, his brow furrowed in concentration. However, the closer she got to really outlining her vision, the more the shadows of doubt crowded in once more. What if this was too ambitious? What if he didn't see her worth? Jenna, Wade said, pulling her from her spiral of doubts. I love where you're going with this. But I want to hear more about you. What drives you on this path? His question wasn't just a lure for information, it was a demand for vulnerability. Jenna hesitated, as the honest truth was wrapped in layers of hardship that she wasn't sure she wanted to peel back. What if diving deep exposed too much of her inadequacies? And yet, she knew the answer mattered, not just for him, but for her. I've seen what lack of access does, she started slowly, feeling her throat tighten. I grew up in a small town where, well, help wasn't just scarce, it was almost non-existent. There are mothers like me, watching their children suffer without the resources to do anything about it. A glance at Wade's earnest expression gave her the courage to continue. I want to make that better. I want to give families the pathways they deserve. As she spoke, Jenna felt a wave of liberation that swept away lingering reservations. Each revelation peeled back a layer of her facade, exposing her genuine desire to help others while finally confronting the inadequacy she had harbored all these years. She'd never been just a waitress, she was an advocate. An advocate driven by a past that had once made her feel powerless. Wade leaned back, his eyes glistening with reflection as he processed her words. Jenna waited, instinctively holding her breath, wondering if she'd just go too far. Maybe he regretted asking. Instead, he smiled, an honest, approving smile that lit up the room like the first rays of dawn. Jenna, you have a vision, and more importantly, you understand the community you want to serve. There's tremendous potential here, a definite spark that can be fanned into a flame. Rejuvenated by his affirmation, Jenna felt an exhilarating rush of ambition surge. But as quickly as the confidence came, a shadow flickered in her mind again. Could she really do this? Was she ready for the commitment it would take to see her ideas through? Let's push this forward, Wade continued, shifting the dynamic again. How about we meet weekly and start drafting a proposal? There's a lot we need to consider, but I believe this could change lives. A knot tightened in Jenna's stomach with both excitement and trepidation. This was not just a step into the unknown, but a leap. Balancing her family, her job, and now this ambitious project would be no small feat. 1,000 questions spiraled in her mind. Incorporating this into my life, even the ideas of how to manage it all could make or break my progress, she thought, anxiety swirling in her gut. Wade interrupted her internal debate. It won't be easy. But I see potential in you that's ready to be unleashed. The moment hung heavy. This was her defining choice. Taking a leap meant risking a return to shame or failure, but perhaps it also meant redefining every limit she thought she had. Let's do it, Jenna finally said, determination rigid in her voice. As they structured a plan and outlined the first steps, Jenna felt both exhilaration and dread intertwine. The fear that had once confined her began to dissipate, but the weight of her choice loomed large. Would the exhilaration turn to despair if she stumbled? Each decision she made now seemed pivotal, and with every passing moment, Jenna grappled with a resurgence of old fears mingling with a triumph she had yet to allow herself to fully embrace. The precarious balance between what she wished to achieve and what she thought she was capable of remained painfully tangible. Her awakening, however, pointed to a stark realization: the fears would be there, but they didn't have to dictate her path. Jenna felt a spark of courage igniting deep within her. Would she feed that spark and allow it to blaze? And just as those thoughts settled in her mind, Wade shifted direction again, asking, "What's the biggest obstacle you think you'll face moving forward?" A question that would force every doubt, every lingering fear to come to the surface, setting the stage for a confrontation she hadn't anticipated. Would she be ready to face her challenges head-on? As Jenna heard Wade's question, the weight of her insecurities morphed into an urgent clarity. The classroom-like atmosphere of the office faded, replaced by an interior landscape twisted by memories and fears. She hesitated, every fiber of her being screamed to give a polished response, one that would assure him of her worth, but inside, a storm brewed. What was the biggest obstacle? The answer was ever-present. It wasn't about the lack of connections or money, it was about herself, the relentless echo of her insecurities that had shadowed her for so long. She took a deep breath, grounding herself, the soft murmur of paper against the table from her notes grounding her in reality. "It's me," she finally admitted, unsure of how her honest confession would land. "I'm afraid of not being enough, not being capable of following through." The last words came out in a rush, exposing the vulnerability she had only just begun to understand. Wade's gaze remained steady, and Jenna felt that warmth from before, mingling with the tension building inside her. "What do you mean?" He probed gently, leaning forward, his expression open and curious. "What if I can't manage the logistics?" she asked, her voice wavering slightly. "What if the reality of executing this project is beyond my abilities? I mean, I've never done anything like this." The admission hung in the air, a raw echo of her past experiences. She braced herself for Wade's response. Would he see her lack of experience as a disqualifying factor? "That's the beauty of starting from a place of passion," he said, his tone reassuring. "You've already shown how deeply you understand the community's needs. That's half the battle. Now, it's about learning the rest, and I'll be here to help you through that." Jenna felt a hesitant smile ghost over her lips. The idea of having a mentor, someone even remotely like Wade, filled her with hope, but a deeper tension clung to her heart. Could passion really bridge the gaps in her knowledge? What if she stumbled under the weight of expectations? "Think of it as a journey," Wade continued, pulling her focus back to him. "Every expert was once a beginner. What's important is to embrace that feeling of not knowing while still pushing forward. You need to be willing to learn from the missteps." The concept of missteps provoked a flicker of unease in her. "What if I can't recover from those missteps?" she countered, surprised at the challenge in her voice. "What if it turns out my good intentions aren't enough?" Wade regarded her with a thoughtful expression. "Then you adapt. You reevaluate. You find out what you need to change, and you forge ahead. This is a chance for growth. Every failure teaches you something valuable. And remember, you won't be alone." Instinctively, Jenna leaned forward, a surge of determination coursing through her. "I want to be a voice for those mothers, those families who have no one fighting for them." Her declaration hung between them like a promise waiting to be fulfilled. "That's your foundation," Wade said with emphasis. "Focus on that, and let your passion be your compass. What else do you think could hold you back?" The question flared another confrontation within her. This time, it wasn't just about her capabilities, it was about balancing her personal life, her responsibilities at home, and her dreams clashing against each other. She had always been the caretaker, the reliable one. What would happen if she faltered? Could she draw from the same well of strength she now so fervently wanted to offer to others? "I worry about my time," she began slowly, picking at the threads that bound her. "I have my children to think about. I can't afford to fail when so much is at stake." Wade nodded, recognizing the weight of her concerns. "Then we need to build a structure around your time management and priorities. We can find solutions to this together. It's all about aligning your vision with your reality." Jenna felt a flicker of resolve battling with her self-doubt. The prospect of a structured plan ignited a fierce curiosity within her. Could planning really act as a shield against her fears? What if I mess up the plan? She asked, half hopeful, half worried. Then you adjust it. The important thing is to keep stepping forward, Wade replied. Now, let us outline the next actionable steps you can take to balance these competing priorities. As Wendy's voice faded into a discussion of practical strategies, Jenna felt a swell of empowerment. Her transformation had just begun, each step tethered tighter to her driving purpose. But as she processed Wade's guidance, the specter of fear still loomed, a whisper in the back of her mind. Would she genuinely manage to balance this ambition with all the chaos life threw at her? With renewed energy, she battled the internal conflict, asking herself, how far could she stretch her limits without breaking? She could feel the weight of her dreams imbued with possibility, and yet the very thought of failure still loomed ominously. Let us find a way to calculate the next steps, she said, a note of excitement threading through her voice. But before we get into specifics, I need to know what if things don't turn out the way I hope? As the uncertainty of that question hung in the air, Jenna knew she was on the brink of confronting the most daunting challenge of her life, herself. Would she be able to embrace both her potential and her fears? Jenna sat in the soft glow of the late afternoon sun filtering through Wade's office window, the golden light illuminating the path ahead, yet casting shadows filled with apprehension on the walls of her mind. Every word exchanged was a building block of a vision that seemed both tantalizing and terrifying. She had registered parts of Wade's suggestions, but the nagging voice of self-doubt continued to echo. Was she truly ready to commit? In the days following her conversation with Wade, Jenna delved deeper into the world of project management. She enrolled in online courses aimed at refining her logistical skills and sorted through stacks of notes she had jotted down during previous meetings with local nonprofits. The learning felt invigorating, but moments of terror haunted her. What if she couldn't keep up? What if those classes helped only to deepen her insecurities? Determined to reframe her mindset, she began to integrate practical exercises into her daily routine. Planning her weeks included balancing time with her children and moments to focus on the budding project that occupied her thoughts. Each evening, after tucking her kids into bed, she would sit with her planner, scribbling down goals and breaking them into manageable tasks, tasting the sweet promise of structure amid the chaos. Every expert was once a beginner, she muttered to herself as she expertly rearranged her notes, embracing Wade's mantra like a talisman against her fears. Yet, the weight of responsibility still loomed heavily on her heart. When had she transitioned from caregiver to aspiring leader? Each moment spent prepping for the future was marred by guilt. What if her children felt neglected? One afternoon, as her youngest tapped on the door while she was immersed in research, Jenna snapped her laptop shut. Her heart sank as she opened the door, ready to brush off her son's request to play. But something halted her. "Mom, can we build a fort?" he asked, his eyes shining with innocent enthusiasm. The simplicity of the request tore at her. Here was her son, completely focused on the present, unaware of the myriad of worries flooding her mind. In that instant, a realization washed over Jenna. Her dual existence as a mother and aspiring leader needed not to be at war with one another. Instead, they could coexist, feeding off one another's strengths. Absolutely. "Let us build the biggest fort ever," she replied, a spark igniting within her as she picked up the scattered cushions and directed him to gather blankets. As they built an elaborate fortress in the living room, Jenna felt herself engaged not just with her son but also with the present moment, recalling the same enthusiasm she had felt when discussing her vision with Wade. "Mom," her son exclaimed as they completed their creation, "this is the best fort ever." Just like my projects, she thought, her mind racing with parallels. Visioning her ideas wasn't just a professional endeavor, it was a chance to inspire her children, to show them resilience in pursuing dreams no matter how intimidating they appeared. With renewed energy, she returned to her studies and plans with a fresh perspective. The barriers separating her motherhood and ambitions began to blur. She started brainstorming how to include her children in small parts of her project. Perhaps they could help create promotional materials or design a logo. The more she enveloped them, the more she realized that her fears could be shared, understood, and even transformed into collaborative ventures, but even as clarity took shape, challenges arose. There were unpredictable obstacles with her courses that veered off the structured path she had drawn. And each disruption sent her spiraling back into doubt. "Nothing is guaranteed," she whispered, fingering the edges of her research papers, reflecting over the simple joys of fort building contrasted sharply with the looming responsibilities ahead. What if her insecurities gained another foothold? In the solitude of her thoughts, Jenna realized the next pivotal step awaited her, to reach out for feedback, to seek advice not just from Wade but from others who had blazed similar trails. Vulnerability was not a weakness, it was part of the journey, the next fort she needed to build. As she prepared to draft an email, she felt that familiarity of trepidation rise, but this time, wrapped in the armor of newfound resolve. Whatever the outcome, she had chosen to leap into the unknown, confronting her shadows instead of cowering beneath them. She breathed slowly, fingers hovering over the keyboard. "Here goes nothing," she murmured, poised to take that crucial step toward embracing both the challenges ahead and the realization of her potential. As the glow of the computer screen illuminated her face, the larger questions loomed. This was her moment to leap into action, but would the world receive her with open arms or set her back in her journey? The thought of sharing her ideas, of opening herself to critique, set her heart racing. Would this push towards validation unlock the next door she needed to walk through? Would she find not just her footing, but her voice in the cacophony of fear? Jenna took a deep breath, willing her fingers to move. As the cursor blinked expectantly, she began to type. The email, addressed to a network of women in project management she had discovered through her classes, took shape slowly as she poured her thoughts onto the screen. "Hello, everyone. I'm reaching out because," she paused, questioning the value of her voice in a sea of established professionals. In that moment, an echo of doubt gnawed at her confidence, a whisper that suggested she was intruding. Who was she, after all, to seek guidance from such a successful group? Jerking her head back, she almost closed the laptop. But a sudden recollection of her son's animated excitement while building their fort propelled her forward. She continued typing, consciously crafting her message with vulnerability. The phrasing transformed from formal to conversational. "I'm a single mother exploring project management, working on a personal project that feels both exciting and insurmountable. I'd love to hear any advice about overcoming self-doubt or navigating this field. Thank you." With a resolute click, she sent the email into the digital ether, surprise washing over her as she realized she had, indeed, let go of insecurity. This small act felt monumental. But with accomplishment came an unsettling truth: despite her bravado, the echoes of doubt still lingered. In the days that followed, Jenna diverted her focus back to her studies, but the sensation of anxiety clung to her like a heavy coat. The waiting was agonizing. Each ping of her phone made her heart race, anticipating a response that would either affirm her choice or deepen her fears. She dissected every moment spent on her courses, questioning her progress, her understanding, and her eligibility to be in the room. Each time she explained her project to her children, she noticed a new complexity whispering through her confidence. They'd ask questions that made her realize she still lacked clarity. "Mom, what's this project about?" they'd say, their innocent curiosity forcing her to reflect. How could she expect to inspire them if she wasn't sure of her own vision? Perhaps it's time for a deeper exploration, she considered, pondering the necessity of defining the project more clearly. What was it she truly hoped to achieve? Each hesitation unfurled a new layer of uncertainty and renewed determination to clarify her values and desires. Jenna knew that figuring that out was the foundation for her future. That evening, notebook in hand, she migrated from tasks to reflection. She began mapping her vision, sketching her project's purpose alongside her personal ambitions, each branch a facet of who she wanted to become. "This is my dream," she scribbled in bold. The assertion felt like both liberation and pressure. Every stroke was fraught with possibilities, but also daunting accountability. The next day brought an unexpected twist. As Jenna prepared breakfast, she received an email notification. responses were trickling in. With a racing heart, she opened them one by one, thoughts ricocheting between excitement and dread. Each reply resonated differently. Some offered encouragement, while others reminded her of the hard work ahead. Yet one particularly pointed question grabbed her attention, cutting through the noise like a beacon. What do you want your children to learn about pursuing their dreams? That question echoed in her mind long after she finished reading. It wasn't merely about her project, it was a defining inquiry, forcing her to confront what legacy she wanted to instill. Jenna's resolve solidified. As she jotted down her thoughts in response, the clarity of her vision sharpened. Despite knowing the road ahead would be plagued with uncertainty, self-doubt lurking like a shadow, waiting for the slightest chance to derail her, she realized that embracing these challenges was essential, not just for her, but for her children as well. The transformation was not simply about completing a project. It was an embodiment of resilience, a stance against the softening grip of fear that had held her back for too long. Yet, as she prepared to share her refined vision with the community, a fresh wave of hesitation cascaded over her. What if her dreams weren't enough? What if they seemed foolish to others? Trembling slightly, Jenna put pen to paper, ready to articulate not just her project, but the deeper desires behind it. This wasn't merely a professional leap, it was a plunge into her identity, a chance to raise her voice amidst the naysayers in her mind. As she sealed her thoughts into an email, an image flashed before her of the fort they had built, a symbol of both comfort and ambition. Would this final leap propel her into a new realm of professional growth, or would she find herself vulnerable yet again? The moment she clicked send, Jenna felt a palpable shift. There was no turning back now, only a path laden with uncertainties, but ripe with the potential for growth. What awaited her at the end of this path? The thrill of exploration surged through her veins as new questions danced in her mind. Could this be the moment I truly lay bare my dreams? She pondered. A seed of courage was planted deep within, but would it take root? Each email response lay ahead, each response a new door to open or close. The imminent reality of receiving feedback turned into a haunting thrill, one that promised to push her boundaries further than ever before. As the hours trickled by, Jenna found herself oscillating between phases of electric anticipation and quiet dread. Closing her eyes, she tried to center herself amidst the noise. She visualized the feedback coming in waves, some powerful and encouraging, others coldly critical. Her instincts screamed that of all the replies, the one question lingered most: what do you want your children to learn about pursuing their dreams? She tossed her notebook aside and wrestled with that inquiry. Was her aspiration to show them resilience or, perhaps even more profoundly, to illuminate the reality of pursuing a dream in the face of daunting odds? Questions swirled relentlessly in her mind. For every optimistic vision she conjured, an opposing voice chipped away. What if this dream was too ambitious, too impractical? With a quick swiping motion, she checked her email again, desperate to quell the voice of doubt. One new message appeared, sent from a name she did not recognize. Its succinct subject line caused her stomach to drop: your recent inquiry. Heart racing, she opened it. Hi Jenna, the email began warmly. I wanted to personally respond to your thoughtful question. It's refreshing to see someone so dedicated. As a senior project manager with over a decade in the field, I can assure you that every woman experiences doubt at some point. What makes you exceptional is your willingness to seek guidance and reflect on your journey. Remember, clarity is not found, it is created. So, what do you envision for your children? There was a comforting intimacy to the reply, a gentle nudge forward, leaving Jenna feeling cautiously optimistic. She closed her laptop, allowing the words to sink in. Perhaps her pursuit was not merely a personal journey but also a way to showcase the power of resilience and thoughtfulness to her children. Emboldened by this connection, she decided on a new course of action. The resolve that had coalesced in her mind began to crystallize, yet it required more than just clarity, it demanded a tangible goal. Jenna covered her notebook with sketches of her ideas, each connected by arrows of possibility, branching into that undefinable space beyond her initial vision. As she organized her thoughts, a simmering excitement took hold. It was a quiet, potent energy pulsating from within, igniting the notion that defining her children's learning experience was just as pivotal as the ambitions she held for herself. Inspired, she jotted down a new vision statement for her project, one that included her children's role as indispensable co-creators of their family's future. "Together, we will build not just a project, but a legacy," she wrote before underlining it fiercely. This was the heart of her journey, a shared experience that could deepen their bond while providing invaluable life lessons. That night, Jenna reread the email from the project manager, analyzing its content for priceless wisdom. She recognized that learning to navigate her emotions would be essential. There would be mistakes, setbacks, and fear, but she would not let it cripple her. A quote from one of her favorite authors surfaced in her mind: "You can't avoid fear, you must learn to dance with it." The children's joyful laughter floated through the house as they wrapped up their day, the weight of her responsibilities balanced by the privilege of motherhood. Jenna closed her eyes, taking a moment to embrace everything she had achieved so far: the challenge of questioning herself, the courage to ask for help, and the newfound clarity shaping her dreams. As the days turned into nights, Jenna felt herself on the cusp of significant change. She began scheduling meetings with mentors, using the resources from the network that had answered her call. Each small step infused her spirit with renewed determination. However, during a late-night brainstorming session, a shivering realization gripped her, a realization that confronting her ambitions now required her to face the very fear of failure she had always avoided. The ghosts of her past insecurities resurfaced, and doubt wrapped its fingers around her resolve. With her toothbrush clutched in one hand, she paused to absorb the sudden churn in her stomach. What if, in her pursuit, she failed not just herself, but her children too? What if every effort was in vain? Would they only see a mother haunted by her own shortcomings? Clenching her jaw, she breathed deeply, refusing to let fear dictate her choices. Despite the looming sense of dread, an inner voice whispered that it was time to confront the barriers she had always allowed to define her. "Tomorrow," she resolved, "I will rise to the challenge of facing my fears." As she finished getting ready for bed, it struck her the realization that pursuing excellence was intertwined with accepting herself as a work in progress. The journey was not just about the destination, it was about every moment of vulnerability along the way. Jenna looked at her reflection, and instead of the reflection of doubt, she saw a woman ready to embrace her true potential. As she drifted off to sleep, she felt the familiar pulse of anxiety subsiding, gradually being replaced by something more profound. A longing to prove to her children that daring to leap was the essence of living fully. What awaited her next was critical, a confrontation with the personal barriers she had cultivated all those years. But this time, she would not let fear be her compass. Jenna was prepared to face whatever lay ahead, ready to redefine her boundaries. The time had come to confront the limitations of her past. Would Jenna break free, or would she find herself tethered to an old version of herself? Morning light filtered softly through the curtains, illuminating Jenna's face as she awakened. A new sense of determination coursed through her, an electric charge propelling her forward. Today was the day: no more hiding, no more second-guessing. She rolled out of bed and began her morning routine with renewed vigor, her thoughts buzzing with strategies and possibilities. Jenna felt a quiet shift within her, like a muscle that had finally been stretched after years of disuse. She prepared breakfast with a focus she hadn't known she possessed. Each pancake flipped was a promise to herself, a representation of the intentions she was molding. As her children piled into the kitchen, she shared her excitement, urging them to embrace the possibilities in their day. "Today, we're going to learn something new together," she declared, her voice tinted with enthusiasm. They giggled, their curiosity sparked, and Jenna reveled in this moment of connection. A symphony of forks clinking and chatter filled the space, resonating like the heartbeat of a family united. Once her children were out the door to school, the house felt eerily quiet. It was time. Jenna sat at the desk she had let gather dust, a swapped-out symbol of her ambitions, her own workspace where ideas could flourish. She opened her laptop and looked over the mentors she had scheduled to speak with this week. Each name represented a path, a doorway wide open, waiting for someone willing to step through. her thoughts turned to the meeting she had planned with Claire, the project manager from the email. Jenna's heart raced at the prospect of learning from someone who had navigated these waters, someone who had wrestled demons of her own. This wouldn't just be a conversation, it would be a transformative moment. But a flicker of doubt pricked at her. What if Claire barely remembered her? What if she found Jenna's questions naive? The old familiar grip of anxiety squeezed around her chest, but Jenna inhaled deeply, visualizing that fear as nothing more than a cloud in a vast sky. Breathe in confidence. Breathe out doubt. She repeated this process, allowing the rhythm of her breath to anchor her. As the time for the meeting drew near, Jenna transitioned from anxious anticipation to acceptance of her potential. She shook off the last remnants of fear and crafted her questions, each one more reflective than the last. These wouldn't just be inquiries into career paths, they would become gateways to dialogue about resilience, fear, and the true essence of pursuing a dream. She needed to explore what it meant to embrace risk not just for herself, but for the sake of her children and their own burgeoning dreams. When the moment arrived for the video call, Jenna's palms felt clammy, but as Claire appeared on screen, her welcoming smile was like a lifeline. They commenced with small talk, and Jenna felt the weight of their shared experiences lighten the atmosphere. With each passing moment, Jenna grew more comfortable, igniting a discussion that blended vulnerability with professional insight. The connection was palpable, framing Jenna's thoughts in a light she had long sought, the notion that failures were not the end but could serve as stepping stones toward greater aspirations. Failure, Claire asserted, is merely a behavior. It's the fear of failure that paralyzes us. Jenna absorbed this, her mind racing to envision how to translate this wisdom into an initiative that involved her children. To show them that failure is part of the process. As the conversation unfolded, Jenna felt her barriers begin to dissolve. For the first time, she voiced her dream of creating a project where her children could explore their passions. Claire encouraged her, sharing ideas and resources that opened Jenna's eyes to platforms and communities that could help her manifest this vision. After they concluded the call, Jenna sat back, her heart pounding with exhilaration. The barriers of doubt that had loomed over her now felt like fractured walls, and she, an architect of her own path, was ready to build something new. But as the excitement swelled within her, she was suddenly haunted by an unsettling thought. If she was meant to be the example for her children, how would she reconcile the manageable doubts she now faced? Could she fully commit to this newfound ambition without the sting of imperfection? The challenges ahead loomed larger than life, a mountain still waiting to be scaled. Jenna's heart raced, her mind a whirlwind of possibilities, yet just beneath the surface was that familiar uncertainty. Would she truly be capable of guiding her children through their aspirations if she faltered in her own? Once again, the time had come to rise. Would Jenna muster the courage to confront this new layer of conflict, or would she let it cloud her ambitions once more? The stakes felt higher than ever. Jenna's fingers hovered over the keyboard, pulse quickening as she stared at the blank document. The adrenaline from her call with Claire still coursed through her but was now tinged with a flood of questions. What exactly did she want to create? What did she want her children to learn? It felt like standing on the precipice of a cliff, the ground beneath her teetering, stretching in every direction into an uncertain future. She inhaled deeply, attempting to shake off the fear that clung to her like a heavy coat. It was imperative that she clarify her vision, she needed to articulate it for herself and her kids. With deliberate motion, she began scribbling her thoughts. What did she want to convey to her children about ambition? About navigating the inevitable failures along the path to success? As she continued writing, Jenna's anxiety began morphing into clarity. She envisioned a project, something experiential, where failure wasn't simply tolerated but embraced. A workshop, perhaps, where her children could brainstorm ideas, execute projects, and learn how to pivot when things went sideways. She imagined the sounds of laughter, shouts of excitement, and the hum of creativity filling their home, where each moment would reflect valuable lessons about resilience. But with that vision came an unsettling realization: she would have to practice what she preached. Every part of her being screamed for her to step into a space she had long ago retreated from. What if her own fears aerially shadowed the experiences she wanted her kids to relish? The inescapable truth of her own insecurities began to swell, threatening to engulf the light she had begun to cultivate. Resolved, she picked up her phone and dialed Claire's number, heart hammering in her chest as it rang. What if the care she had felt during their earlier conversation was fleeting? Would Claire remember this eager, uncertain woman who longed to push past self-imposed boundaries? "Hi Claire. It's Jenna," she said as Claire picked up, instantly hearing warmth in her voice. "I've been thinking about our conversation, and I feel this urge to create something for my kids, a way to teach them about exploring their interests and embracing failure." "That's fantastic," Claire replied, encouragement resonating in her tone. "What are you envisioning?" As Jenna spoke about her ideas, outlining her thoughts on workshops and creative endeavors, she felt the hesitation in her voice diminish. Claire listened intently, offering suggestions and insights that further solidified Jenna's vision. This wasn't just an educational initiative, it was a potential community for growth, even if it began within the walls of her home. But beneath her excitement, a gnawing voice persisted. What if she stumbled along the way? Would her insecurities cast a shadow over this endeavor? Jenna shifted in her chair, squaring her shoulders as if in physical preparation for the challenges ahead. "I don't know if I'm fully equipped for this," she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I mean, what if I fail to make this a safe space for them?" Claire paused, her voice lowering with gravity. "Jenna, that's precisely the point. You're going to fail, make mistakes along the way, and so will they. This isn't about perfection, it's about showing them it's okay to try and to grow. You're not alone in this, remember. It's a journey." Jenna felt the weight of Claire's words settle into her consciousness. Maybe she didn't need to have all the answers right away, perhaps the journey itself, with all its messiness, could serve as the best lesson for her children. As their call drew to a close, Claire emphasized the importance of sharing this journey with her kids, inviting them into the failures as much as the triumphs. A surge of energy rushed through Jenna, igniting her determination. Once the call ended, Jenna returned to her desk, quickly writing down new ideas that had emerged during the conversation. She felt a sense of purpose returning, as if every word stitched together a narrative of possibility. Then the familiar inkling of doubt crept back in. She wondered how others would perceive this initiative. What would peers think? Would they scoff at a single mother's desires? But Jenna quickly brushed those thoughts aside. This was for her children, this was necessary. As she resolved to embrace the vulnerability inherent in growth, Jenna felt a flicker of excitement swirl inside her. She was standing at the threshold of transformation, even if she was unsure of where it would lead her. Determined, she drew out a calendar, planning the framework of her project, brainstorming sessions, test runs, and evenings spent connected, eyes sparkling with ideas. Yet, lurking behind this plan was an echo of her insecurity, threatening to drown her newfound convictions. Would she manage to lead them through both the triumphs and tribulations, or would her doubts unravel the fabric of her aspirations? She glanced at the calendar, a growing sense of urgency pressing against her chest. Today had been just a start. The real test was still ahead. Would she have the strength to keep climbing, despite the shadows of uncertainty? Her phone buzzed, jolting her from her thoughts. It was Claire's message. "Remember, Jenna, it's the journey that counts. You are never alone." But with the light of encouragement came an ominous thought. How long could she sustain the facade of confidence in the face of her own growing fears? The road ahead stretched out dauntingly, yet the need to forge ahead pressed insistently upon her. A decision loomed, and the clock was ticking. Would she step boldly into the unknown, or retreat once more into her shell? Jenna sat at her desk, a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions swirling around her. The calendar she had meticulously created buzzed with markers of meetings, brainstorming sessions, and aspirations for her project, but beneath that structure lay a familiar unease. Today would not be an ordinary day. Today was the day she pitched her vision to the greater community, a moment that would either solidify her path or push her back into self-doubt. Taking a deep breath, Jenna focused on her accomplishments, the courses she had completed, the calls she had made with mentors, and the vulnerable messages she had sent into the ether. She had forged connections and turned tentative ideas into actionable plans. Yet even as she reflected on her growth, a tightness lodged in her chest, whispering doubts and fears that threatened to unravel the progress that felt so hard-earned. No, she chastised herself firmly. This is my moment, not my boundary. The phrase echoed in her mind, a rallying cry. She stood up, moving to the mirror hanging on the wall. You are not just a single mother, you are a leader, an advocate, she declared to her reflection, her voice steady and resolute. Jenna dressed in her navy blazer again, it felt like armor, a tangible reminder of her commitment to herself. Today was about transcendence, not just personally, but as a testament to what she could achieve despite the odds stacked against her. The venue buzzed as she entered, an energy pulsating through the air, a contrast to the timid girl that had first ventured onto the gym stage weeks prior. As she approached the small group assembled to hear her presentation, the faces of those who had doubted her crammed together with the supportive ones she had gathered over the past weeks. She felt a sense of purpose ignite within her, a fire that had been smoldering beneath layers of fear and insecurity. Hello, everyone. My name is Jenna, she began, voice trembling slightly but grateful for the terror that reminded her she was alive, that she mattered. I'm here to share a vision I have, not only for greater healthcare access in our community but a vision I want my children to see realized. The audience shifted, curiosity sharp in their eyes. She launched into her project, painting a vivid picture of her dreams for workshops centered around resilience and exploration for children and families. She spoke of her journey, a journey defined not just by her struggles but by what fueled her ambitions, imparting the lessons she wanted her children to learn, that success should not be a solitary climb but a communal uplift. As she spoke, Jenna felt the weight of doubt dissipating, replaced by a sense of belonging and purpose in this room. Each point resonated with truth, each word empowering her to push past the limits she had once believed immutable. The room erupted with applause, a testament to something much bigger than herself. Her cheeks flushed not with embarrassment but with pride. After her presentation concluded, Wade approached her, a gleam of recognition in his eyes. Incredible, Jenna. You have genuinely created a movement with this, he said, extending his hand firmly. In that moment, the accolades from before were fair and validating. They felt deserved. Thank you, she replied, the tremor in her voice now one of quiet confidence. This is just the beginning. Later that evening, Jenna engaged with the audience, exchanging ideas and gathering feedback. Each interaction filled her with encouragement and morale, a stark contrast to the vibrant fear that had accompanied her earlier pursuits. At home, the familiar sounds of her children filled the air as they dove into the fort they had constructed during a previous evening's bonding session. Jenna watched as they experimented, giggling and troubleshooting together. In that moment, she recognized the tides that had shifted within her. She wasn't just a kingdom builder of dreams but a mother weaving a narrative of empowerment and resilience for her children. Later, as she tucked them into bed, they looked at her with shining eyes, their response to her journey enriching her spirit. Will you tell us more about your ideas tomorrow? Her daughter asked, her curiosity radiating warmth through Jenna's heart. Absolutely. Tomorrow, we'll build more than just a fort, we will build our dreams, Jenna whispered, kissing them goodnight. Lying in bed that night, Jenna felt a profound sense of achievement wash over her, a satisfaction that she had faced her fears and taken them as allies rather than adversaries. She was not just a participant in her life but a driver of the narrative, rewriting her story, and in that profound reflection, as Jenna embraced sleep, she realized she had not only overcome the challenges she faced but had also established a path forward not just for herself, but for her children and the community around her. In the narrative of her life, each obstacle became a stepping stone, a lesson in resilience. No longer would fear linger as the shackle holding her back, instead, it would stand as a reminder of the courage it takes to step into the light, to acknowledge dreams as valid and real, waiting simply to be claimed. The future stood bright and limitless ahead of her. Now, it was time to keep that momentum alive. Now is your moment to join Jenna on her journey of transformation. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep inspiring stories alive. Comment your reactions and theories about Jenna's incredible path and breakthroughs. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Show your unwavering support for narratives that uplift and inspire, on this shared platform of overcoming adversity. Together,